All right, welcome back. Uh, we are back with a new episode this week. I think this is episode 5. Starting to lose track because we are a few episodes in now and just really enjoying this. It's been a good time. Um, we have been leading up with different things in these episodes. Still haven't even really got into the Bible yet, which is kind of crazy to think about, but we haven't got there yet.
Well, we're talking a whole lot of science and a whole lot of just background information with apologetics, and it's been really been a good time just to get together and talk.
Yeah. Um, but I guess for this episode, a good way to lead up to this is I guess we could say our show has been evolving up to this point.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, because
I see what you did there.
we are talking about evolution tonight. Um, we are excited with this evolution segment because can we go ahead and mention what's that?
Absolutely mention. Absolutely, it's coming.
Yeah, next week we are excited to announce that we will have Carl Kirby on with us.
Yep.
If you don't know who Carl Kirby is, I encourage you to take this week and look him up and
do some homework because like he is one of the top apologetists in the country, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't even think it's just my opinion. Carl is phenomenal. He just can absolutely captivate an audience when he talks, and so I love getting together with him and getting to talk with him, and so that's what it's going to be, and we're going to get together and get to talk to him.
Yeah, and it'll be fun to have him because, like you said, he's just so knowledgeable about evolution and just everything in general, really. But it will be fun to have him, and he'll be our first guest. We haven't had a guest yet either, so that'll be fun to have a guest, and just to have somebody of his stature on the show will be a really fun thing. But like we said, we are starting to talk about evolution, and we've kind of mentioned it a little bit in our shows leading up to this, but now we're really gonna to dive deep into it. And whenever you told me that that's kind of what you'd like to talk about this week, I did a little bit of research, and because I wanted to know, I'm kind of a word guy, I guess.
Right.
And I wanted to know when the word evolution came about, what it meant at first. And, what I learned is this word has evolved since its original
no doubt.
translation. I actually got it pulled up. The word came to be in like the 14th century. And at that time, it meant an unrolling of a scroll or a book.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. It has nothing to do with what the meaning is today.
Yeah. It wasn't until Darwin, of course. That was like, let me see here. I had that. I'm not seeing it now, but whenever he started using it, he was the one that used it differently. And
right. And so that's where I guess it changed definition. And really at the base of the definition now, change is the definition.
Yeah.
That's what evolution is. It's change.
Yeah.
But we've kind of, I guess it's kind of evolved into where it's a process by different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed or diversified from earlier forms throughout the history of Earth. And that's kind of the definition that it comes about there. But yeah, I think Darwin is the one that popularized this, of course, this theory. And so that's what I kind of wanted to start with is everybody wants to equate evolution with science.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not correct. I mean, that's not correct. And so let's just talk about science and what science is. And the first thing I want to tell you, science is at the basic definition of science is knowledge. It's knowledge. And so science is knowledge, but it's knowledge that can be seen, tested, and demonstrated. Okay?
It's interesting I might be jumping the gun, but it's interesting when you think about that definition with evolution.
Well, that's just it. And so it's become synonymous that, evolution is science. No, it's not. Because science is knowledge that can be seen, tested, and demonstrated. That's what it is. That's the very course of what knowledge, what science is. And so if you can't, and so we talked about this morning, actually, in the sermon, we were talking about the different ways that you can get truth and get knowledge. And so rationalism, and then you have empiricism, which is science, where you're using the scientific method. You're using things that you can see, test, and repeat. You can demonstrate it. And so that gives you knowledge. And so there is some knowledge that you gain from empiricism. But there's certain things that you have to use rationalism with. And you have to be able to think through. Operational science is something that's present, that's repeatable, where there's experiments. You got medicine, you have physics, you have chemistry. All those are operational science. What we're talking about is historical science, historical knowledge, okay? Explanation about the past, things that are unrepeatable. We can't repeat this. We can't repeat the origin of life. We can't repeat those things. We can't repeat the Big Bang. Those things you can't test. You can't prove. And so historical science is different in that aspect. And you have to look at other ways to do it. And so that's the first thing that I wanted to hit is what is science and I wanted to make it to where it's not synonymous with evolution, because I know that's what people are going to come at us with was, oh, no, it's science and evolution go hand in hand. No, 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 no. Evolution is a belief. Mm-hmm. Evolution is a belief. It is not science. Evolution takes a whole lot more faith to believe than creation, first of all.
It does. And I think it's, are they still in, because I know you've worked in schools for years, are they still calling it a theory, or are they trying to present it as fact in school now?
Well, I think it depends on who your teacher is, first of all. But
oh, yeah.
I mean, it absolutely is a theory.
I guess I should rephrase my question. In the books, are they calling it a theory still, or is
yeah, it has to be a theory, because a theory is something that can't be proven as a law. Okay, so it is a theory because you can't prove it. But it's never presented that way by scientists. Okay, never presented that way. It's presented as fact, and the reality is it's not fact. It absolutely is not. It is a belief system, and so you have to. That's what it comes down to, is that it is a belief system.
And with schools, like you said, it does matter who the teacher is, and we are, I would say, blessed to live in the part of the country that we do, because most of your teachers are, they might have to teach it, but they're not teaching it as fact. They're just
they're teaching it, right?
Yeah.
And it is a theory. But like I'm saying, neither one of these are strictly scientific to the point that it is operational science, because they're not. No, whether you believe in evolution or creation, neither one are. They're both faith prepositions. That you have to have faith in. And so, because we're trying to explain what happened in the past, and you can't do that by repeating it or an experiment. You can't observe. I mean, it's not testable. It's not testable. And so the thing is, with creation, you would think that if we were created by God, that he would find some way to communicate to us the truth about our origin and the purpose for us being here, which would lead us right back into what we've not used yet with the Bible.
Yeah.
Because he does do that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of arguments that people use when you start going to Scripture, which would lead us into some episodes that we're going to do later on, probably not too much later on, probably within the next few weeks, because people don't believe that the Bible's true.
Right, and we definitely got to hit that. And man, I don't know. I mean,
we did have a comment like that this past week. We saw that somebody just said, "Well, you believe whatever, just because it's in the Bible."
Well, yeah, and there's reason for that, and we'll go through and prove that to you, and we will. That episode's coming.
But you've got arguments with the Bible too that people. I think we've mentioned it in previous episodes with the word day, and that did that really mean a 24-hour day and this and that. And so there's a lot that goes on with those kinds of arguments that we'll look at later on. that go with the fact of going back to Genesis, because of course we believe Genesis, but
Right.
getting other people to really see that and understand can be a little bit difficult of a task. And I mentioned it to you, but I just want to tell our listeners too. I was I'm not going to say where because I don't want to embarrass anybody or anything, but
Right.
I was with some people this past week who were having a conversation, and they were they were talking about some off the wall stuff, but one of the comments that they made was pretty profound because they were talking about how they had always believed something up until they got to be a certain age because they'd been taught that in school, and they said you never question anything when you're taught it in school because of the teacher or whoever it is standing before you. You just always grow up with the mindset thinking I shouldn't question them. They're in this position because they're educated or whatever. I shouldn't question them. And so that made me think about this episode that we had coming up with evolution, because how many people have heard evolution taught in schools, colleges, different things like that.
And never really thought it through.
Yeah, and
Never really thought it through.
just agreed with it because the teacher said so.
Right. And so that's the big thing. It's what I think it's kind of been a theme that we've developed here is you don't have to just believe what we say. Take it, look at it, be objective with it. Because if you search for truth, you're going to end up with Jesus Christ. I have no doubt about that. If you truly, openly search for truth, you will end up with Jesus Christ every time.
Yeah.
But you've got to go about it objectively.
You do.
And so I want people to think. And even when I was in education, that was one of the things I wanted my students to do is I wanted them to be able to think on their own. Not just regurgitate information to me, but be able to think through things and go, does this make sense? As a parent, it's one of the things I've been trying to instill in my children. Don't just accept face value. Let's think through the way things are and why they are and ask questions. It's okay to ask.
I even tell people at churches, whether I'm preaching here or at other churches, I say, don't just believe me for what I tell you. You look, like I tell people all the time, don't just rely on a PowerPoint to see your verses. You go look at it
Bible,
for yourself.
Man, dig in.
Yeah,
yes.
Go read it and fact check me. Just because I'm preaching doesn't mean I'm perfect, because I'm not. I'm human. I can make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And so, especially working with youth, I tell them because I worry about them. Once they go off to college, mom and dad's not there anymore.
Yep.
They don't have the guidance of their normal youth pastor anymore.
So if they're not taught to think and they're not taught to question and find answers and know answers, then they can get led down some really, really dark paths really quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, I want them to go around their campus and find them a church, that they can go to. But I want them to be able to know how to figure out what is truth and what is not truth. Because there's a lot of churches out there that, they might be preaching some crazy stuff. But they have these big crowds. And so as a young kid, you're thinking, hey, they got 1,000, whereas this little church on the corner's only got 15 or 20. I want to go to the big one.
Yeah. Just because you have a big platform and a microphone does not mean you have the truth.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to discern that and be able to look at that and ask questions. And so that's one thing, as we start into this and we're talking about the definition of science, and I think we have established science is not equate evolution.
Mm-hmm.
They're separate. Evolution is a belief system. But I think we have to also define evolution as more than just change, Justin, because that word gets used a whole lot. But it really is talking about 6 different kinds of evolution all in itself.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. There's like 6 different.
Yeah, there's 6 different branches of evolution. You have cosmic evolution, which is, time, space, matter, how that came about, what we talked about last week. So that's cosmic. The next thing you have is chemical evolution, which is the elements forming from hydrogen and helium. If you look at that periodic table, they believe that all elements evolved from hydrogen and helium. I don't even know that we'll have time to get into that right now today, but it can happen. It can happen. I think we touched on it last week, because all your neutrons become protons and vice versa, and it just can't happen the way that they say it happens. The third type is stellar or planetary evolution. It's your stars and your planets and how they formed. Then you have organic evolution, which is life from non-life, and we are going to talk some about that, I think, today. I want to get into that because there's some laws that go with that that disprove what that is. You have macroevolution, which is major changes. So like monkey to man, reptile to bird, that sort of thing. Dinosaur to bird. That's the new one, right? And then you have something called microevolution. Microevolution is actually the only one of those that is factual. It's the only one that we can see, and we can go, oh, this happens. It's observable. Mm-hmm. We can see it. And so, I mean, real quick, if you want to just run through them and talk about them, when we talked about the cosmic, we talked about the Big Bang, we talked about time, the origin of time, space, and matter, and then we talked about all that. So I don't think we have to hit that one again, but I think with the chemical evolution, and we talked about that somewhat. But I do want to talk about stellar evolution for a minute, because stellar evolution is something that is really, really, it's interesting. It's how stars and planets form. And so what we know is that you have novas and supernovas. That's when stars explode, or when a huge star explodes. When you start looking at how many stars there are in the universe, I think we could own, every person on Earth could own like 11 trillion stars.
That they know of.
Yeah, that's the ones they know, not the ones that we don't know of yet. Yeah. And so what's interesting about that, we've observed over 300 supernovas where these huge stars explode. We've observed tons of novas. There's over 70 septillion stars. What that breaks down to is like we should see something like 6 million stars form every minute. We should see that. Do you know how many we've ever saw form?
No.
How many stars we've ever saw be created? None. None. It's a belief. It's not real science. It's never been observed. Now they'll say, oh, we see it from, but you can't just see it be born. No. At the rate that we have stars and the rate that we see them explode, we should see this. Like they know, they do the math. It's like you should see them form, but we don't see them form. Mm-hmm. And so that ought to stick out and go, something's not right here.
Yeah.
Something, so. Yeah, but it doesn't. But it's a belief. It's not observable. If you don't observe it, you can't do it. You can't count it.
Yeah.
Then you have organic. And so organic is life from non-life. And so we touched on this last week, because we talked about the box sitting over in the corner, that no matter how long that box sits there, life's not going to come out of it. It's actually the law of biogenesis, in which the law of biogenesis says life only comes from life. And if you'll notice, there's a word I put at the beginning of that. Law. Mm-hmm. It's not a theory. It's a law. Laws can't be broken in science. They can't. Yeah. And so that in itself, organic evolution cannot get around a law of science. It cannot get around it. Evolution is actually against science when it comes to the law of biogenesis. They used to think that things would just spontaneous generation, I think is what it was called. And they thought that life would just pop up out of nowhere. But that's been proven false.
Yeah, that's a crazy theory.
Well,
I'm just sitting here thinking of like the old Nintendo Wii, like where just a random character just pop up beside it. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, where did that come from? But when you get into those, it's time is the hero of the plot. With enough time and enough chance, it could happen. And I do want us to talk about probability. We started throwing numbers out last week, and I couldn't remember the correct numbers, but I do want us to get into that today before we close out. But before that, let's talk macro evolution, monkey to man. We've never seen that. And so one of the things that it blows my mind with this, they talk about all these different things, about all the different transitional forms. We have actually found we actually have fewer transitional forms over the last 150 years than what we started with. You know why? Because they find out they're not really transitional forms.
Right.
And so they always want to throw those out and they want to use those. And
Is that like Lucy? Is that
Lucy's one, yeah. And so I think Carl's going to talk about Lucy next week. So I don't even want to touch that because, man, Carl is going to just like, he's going to eat that up. I'm just going to tell you, he can absolutely destroy that.
I remember going to, I think I mentioned this last week, but I remember going to the Smithsonian Museum, maybe in DC, and they had like a whole room dedicated to these monkey-like creatures that transitioned into humans.
I bet they did.
And of course, Lucy was, like
the big thing at that time.
Center.
Right? Yep. And we thought when we first started this podcast, we had Joe Burrow, and he was talking about one of these transitional forms, supposed transitional forms. But when you start looking at those, there's none. There's none. You can do a quick search, just a quick Google search about it. But they make these claims that fossils like Archaeopteryx or Tiktaalik or whatever, how you pronounce that, they show these evolving kinds, but the reality is fossils are snapshots. They are snapshots of dead organisms. They're not living. It's not testable. You have to make it an opinion on it. You have to interpret it. And the gaps between major kinds after 150 years of searching has went down. It's just went down.
That word you just used, I think it's important to hit a little bit more kinds, because that is one that throws a lot of people for a loop when they're talking about Genesis and the creation account along with the flood, because people get hung up with the flood and Noah's Ark and think, well, how did he fit
all those animals on that boat?
Yeah, but you didn't have to.
Kinds.
Yeah. And so that's important. That's important to note that when we talk about kinds, that incorporates a whole lot of animals into one group. Like you've got dogs, wolves, coyotes. You could go on and on with these animals that fall under the same kind, and people need to understand that and not get hung up on the fact of all these animals being different, because they're all of the same kind.
Yeah, and I think we probably do a whole podcast on that at some point and look at that and talk about that, because there's some interesting stuff when you really start digging into that. I don't know how much you've actually dug into, but man, there's some interesting stuff on that. So maybe sometime down the road, we hit that topic. But these transitional forms, the reality is they're fossils that show what once existed. But you have to interpret those fossils. You have to determine, and that's dependent upon your worldview. It's a faith, and that's what I'm standing on. It's a faith. Macroevolution, and you can quote me on this, has never been observed, ever. Not in the strict scientific sense of direct observation. Has not.
Yeah, somebody will argue that, I saw in a museum.
I saw a transitional form. No. You saw a fossil.
Yeah, that
you
somebody
saw a fossil
said.
that somebody interpreted.
Yeah.
They're interpretations of history.
But just to clarify, what you're saying is nobody has ever sat and actually observed, watched firsthand something turn into something else.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just going to play the arguer here for just a second, because a lot of people like to use a caterpillar.
Turning into a butterfly?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
I would agree, but that is an argument that people
I've never heard that.
I actually, because it's like a caterpillar.
Yeah, but that's the larva.
Yeah.
A caterpillar is the larva of a butterfly.
Yeah.
So we just named the larva caterpillar.
Right.
You don't really have two different organisms there. You have one organism in a pupa larva form, and then you have it in an adult form.
Right.
So
I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that's an argument that I had seen.
Really? That's interesting. I'd never heard that, because that that's pretty easy to blow out of the water there. You know,
Yeah.
that's not two different organisms. That's one organism that goes through a life cycle.
Yeah.
Um, I guess tadpole frog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually another one that people use that now.
Yeah. So yeah, that is not macroevolution.
Yeah.
You're never going to have a tadpole turn into a cat.
Right.
You know, it's always in the right. It's a larva to adult. That's not a change there as far as that. It's not a change from organism to organism, you know, which is what macroevolution says. It says that, you know, that you have these change from one kind of an animal to another kind of an animal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like even in that sense, when we are babies in the womb, we have gills. Do you know that?
I didn't know.
Yeah, you have gill slits because you're in a pocket of fluid. So you can't breathe oxygen. You breathe in this pocket of fluid. Actually, when you get a newborn baby and they first start crying, if they're crying really good, you can almost see them because they've not closed off yet. So is that us changing from one organism to another? No, it's part of that's part of our biological process of who we are. So yeah, I'd never heard that with the frogs or the caterpillars. That's interesting.
I guess I mean, it might be more of just this new age of kids.
Somebody stretching. That's that's not. And one of the interesting things when you look, so you see all these diagrams with macroevolution, right? Where you see it'll have you dinosaurs and all these dinosaurs turning into different kind of dinosaurs, or you'll have turning into birds, or you'll have, I don't know, one thing to another. There's all these diagrams of how it happened where it branches off. But when you read the fine print and you look at the strict fossil evidence, what you find out is they always stay the same. There's no branch. The drawings are the branch. The artwork is the branch. You're going to see that a lot when we talk to Carl and we start talking about these missing links and all these different transitional forms. Is artwork. And so don't forget, like Carl, I'm sure will pull up and pull up some video and different things, man, because he's a professional at this.
Yeah.
But it's artwork, and it's what they use. Because macroevolution is a belief. It's not real science.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not something that you can prove. And then you have microevolution. And so the thing with macroevolution is factual. Okay? Microevolution is not really what I would call, it's evolution in the sense that evolution is change. But it's really just more of a variation among species. You know, it's natural selection. And it's actually very much in line with what we are taught in the Bible. Imagine that. I'll just say that, imagine that. But it's, we see bacteria form resistance. That's microevolution. We see, I'm trying to think of some other examples of that. Bacteria forming resistance. Birds, the different beak variations, especially.
That was the one Darwin was.
Yeah, the finches, right?
Yeah.
The finches, yeah. And so you see those different beak variations. They're very much in line with what we're taught in Scripture. Very much in line with what we're taught in Scripture. And it's just natural selection. It's just variation among species. But you know what? That finch, even the one that's got the hook beak, he's still a finch.
Yeah.
Still a bird. It's not a rabbit. It's a bird, Bacteria, when the virus mutates and forms a little change or defense against whatever it's fighting it off, it's still the same disease. They're still the same bacteria.
Yeah.
It's not changing into something else. We got sent a picture.
Oh, yeah, with the crocodile?
Yeah, a crocodile, and it was born with a fish-like tail. But when you read the article, and this is the thing that was sent to us, and they said, does this prove evolution? Well, when you read the article, it says, no, it's a birth defect.
Yeah.
It's a birth defect. and so it's what they call it, a congenital defect.
Yeah.
Birth defect is what it was. So it wasn't something that's it's not getting any better. And that's what evolution is saying. Oh, things are getting better. That's why they want to bring it out. It's that all through time that we've continued to get better. continue to get better.
Don't they use that argument too for like the knowledge of humans, saying that humans back, say like the Neanderthals and them were really dumb and the cavemen were really dumb. You know, you always see them on those movies where they can't even talk because they're so dumb.
Right? Yeah, they don't have language. They don't have all this stuff.
But then
And I sent you an
that's
article
what I was
this
about to
week.
say.
Yeah, go ahead.
You saw the drill bit that was in a supposed millions of year old seam of coal that was a perfect drill bit. I mean, it looked like one that you would buy today
Yeah.
to use, but yet obviously somebody somewhere along the line had already discovered how to make drill bits and was using them. So it's not like we've gotten smarter over time. You know, we've just, I guess, developed technology and made ourselves look smarter than what.
Well, and that's just it. You're building on somebody else's idea to increase technology is what that comes down to. But let's just talk about the math of evolution. Okay, the probability. And so the number you were looking for last week when you said it's theoretically impossible is 1 in 10 to the 150th power. Dubinsky came up with that.
I don't remember what number I said, but I feel like I was kind of close to it.
I can't remember what you said either, and I could not think of it. I think I was trying to say 50, but it's 150. It's 1 in 10 to the 150th power that things cannot happen, just theoretically impossible. The probability of it happening is impossible. And so you got to start asking, well, is there enough time in the universe for chance to produce the intricate design that we see around us? And we've talked about that intricate design. We talked about the eye. We talked about the cell. You sent me that picture of the cell. It was amazing. The new microscopic look that they have. It does look like a computer chip. It's unreal.
If you haven't seen that, go look that up seriously.
Yeah, it was impressive. Yeah. Impressive. And then we talked about like DNA. Like DNA is unreal. Yeah. Unreal what all it contains. But so when you start looking at this with evolution, listen, if we just had a box and we labeled from 1 to 10, okay, and we had to draw out, and then you put it back, and you draw it again, and we were going to count. So you had to draw a 1, put it back, draw a 2, put it back, draw a 3, all the way to 10, okay? That doesn't sound that bad, right? If you could count from 1 to 10. Now, if you draw 1 and then you draw a 4, you got to start over.
Yeah.
It don't sound too bad. I mean, it's difficult, but it don't sound too bad, right? Well, the chance of that happening, 10 billion attempts. That's what it would take. 10 billion attempts. That's your odds. 1 in 10 billion to count from 1 to 10. Okay? That's not even intricate design. That's just that. Anything, remember, 10 to the 150th power, 1 in 10 to the 150th power can't happen. Do you know the theory of evolution? What they say? Now, it varies. It varies. Different scientists say different things. Some of them say it's 1 in 10 to the 6,000th. But other estimates say it's 1 in 10 to the 3 millionth power.
So either way, from
huge difference.
From the lowest number you gave,
to the highest.
Still,
it's not even close. Even if you said 1 in 10 to the 600th,
would still be past there.
Massively less chance of that happening.
So my question is, if it goes past their cutoff, why are they still like, okay, this might be a possibility?
I heard popular evolutionists talk about this one time. I won't call him out. But he said, I don't believe mathematically it could happen, yet I believe it happened.
That's good logic.
Yeah, I'm thinking, now wait a minute, you're supposed to be intelligent. You're supposed to be one of the smartest people on earth, and that statement just came out of your mouth. And it blows my mind. And that's the stuff I'm telling you. You need to think. When you hear this, you've got to think through this. You've got to think it's mathematically impossible. It can't happen.
And that's what we really want our listeners to understand. We totally realize that we are not scientists. You don't have to tell us that.
I am a mathematician. I am a mathematician. I'm gonna stand on that.
We don't even attempt to say that we're smarter than scientists, because
No.
we're not. These are very intelligent people. But what we do want each and every one of you to do is to listen, to read the things that you're being taught, and saying that this is how you need to believe, and really looking to see if it's possible. Because I would hope that after seeing those numbers and things that we've looked at here today, that you would think, why do
Right.
I believe in that? Why am I trusting that? And going back to the comment that I made earlier from the people that I heard this past week saying, you've just always trusted, you've always believed people that have taught you these things. Well, sometimes it's good to go back and analyze it for yourself
Yep.
and really see, because not only is this like a big topic, some people don't even think of this as a big topic, but this is.
And honestly, evolution. And I started apologetics. I mean, a long time ago. You were, when I first started teaching this, you were younger, much younger. We won't go back how far. Yeah, I was.
And had much more hair back then.
I had a little more hair than that. I still shave that on my own terms. It's okay. But it probably was less gray than what it would be now. But when you start looking at them, and I'd started teaching this a long time ago, and evolution was a hot topic then. And I honestly felt that it had kind of gone away. Hadn't talked about it in a while because I thought that's old news. This nobody buys this anymore until recently. And so I had an opportunity to speak at camp, Nathaniel, and was speaking with them on apologetics and talking to them about this. And they were saying, hey, this is a big deal. Like, tell us more. And I'm going, man, I thought this topic was over. I thought we were past this. I can't believe anybody still buys this.
Well, you've even got Christians that really believe into it somewhat now. And it kind of blows my mind. But there are a lot of Christians that believe things along the lines like, well, God used evolution, um, especially like we talked about earlier after the flood.
Yep.
That God used evolution to repopulate the earth. People believe that God used evolution just in creation in general, which we should know that's not true. If you're a Christian claiming to believe that, then you probably need to go back and read Genesis 1 to see that things were created on different days. But even Christians believing that after the flood should see that that's not how God needed to do things. But it is becoming popular again, like you said.
Yep.
It's a growing trend over these past few years for whatever reason.
Yeah, it seems to be coming back around, and so it's an important topic that we're not just going to spend a week on talking about, because I don't want to just spend 1 week and then you all say, oh, well, you barely touched the surface, because you're right. You can really barely touch the surface on this in a week, because there's so much you can get into. Because like I said, we could take each one of those that we briefly talked about and go into a whole a whole thing just on chemical, just on stellar, just on all the different ones. Yeah. I don't know that we'll do that, but I mean, we'll talk about it.
And then you got things like in your own body, like your tailbone and appendix.
Okay, so yeah, that's one of the common objections.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you can tell that we are evolved because we have vestigial organs, right? That's what you've heard. We've heard that over and over and over for years, like I heard. And when I was younger, if you got strep a couple times in a year, take them tonsils out. Just take them out. No big deal. We're just going to chop them out. You get ice cream for a week. It was the big thing. That was the thing. Your vestigial organs, that proves evolution. That's one of the things. It's one of the common objections you hear. The reality is your tonsils, your appendix, these other useless things. What we've learned since then, as we've studied this, like that your tonsils that they thought were useless, they're actually part of your immune system. That's what we've found out. It's what medicine's determined. It's lymphatic tissue. And your tonsils act as a first line of defense against pathogens entering your body. And it helps train your immune system because it exposes your immune system to certain germs in a way that it's controlled. Okay, so that's what they found out. Removing intoxicables at some time, it may be medical necessary. And can you live without them? Yes. But are they useless? No. They play a very, very much part of your life. Listen, you can live without a spleen. You can live without an arm. It doesn't mean it's not useful.
Yeah.
Your appendix. The old view was that it was useless. It was left over from an herbivore ancestor. But it's a safe house for good gut bacteria, is what it actually is. It helps repopulate the microbiome that's in your gut, especially after infections or stomach virus. And we don't have to get into what all that entails, but it plays a role in the immune system, especially in early life. When you're a child, it produces white blood cells and antibodies, and there are times that you have to have an appendectomy. You have to have your appendix removed. If it becomes inflamed, don't say, "Oh no, I'm going to live with it." You have to have it taken out. Mm-hmm. But research shows that people without an appendix may have a higher rate of certain stomach infections and gut infections and less resilience in that area. Mm. It's just one of the things. And that's just two of the things that we found out that were claimed to be vestigal and non-useful. But we actually found out, no, those are very much important and can be used in our body, and they serve a purpose. And so it's like some other ones, we talked about, do transitional fossils prove evolution? No. We talked about that. I'm trying to think of any more common objections that people might have to this.
And I'm sure whenever Carl gets on the show next week that he's heard many different objections throughout his time traveling all over the country and other places.
Yeah, and so Carl, I can't wait to just sit and talk with him. He's fascinating, just sit and talk to. The other one I wanted to hit was that science disproves the Bible. You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
You've heard people say that, and that's the claim. But science, again, what do we define science? It deals with natural, testable, repeatable. Okay? You can't say science disproves the Bible. The Bible's history. We're going to look at what proves the Bible. We're going to go through that. But I don't want to hear somebody say science disproves. No, it doesn't. In fact, like there's so much in the Bible that is proven correct in science because of it. The Bible makes claims about creation, morality. Science can't disprove that. Mm-hmm. In fact, you can't even define morality without the Bible.
No.
Without an omnipotent creator. If you evolve, you can't define morality at all. You can't even define feelings. Yeah. And I think we talked about that a little bit as well. But, that's the thing. You have these different objections, and none of them hold water. None of them hold water. And so that's the big thing I wanted to start today with, and just start talking on this topic with. I wanted just to look at the math, which we did. I wanted us to define science. I wanted us to define evolution, and know when you're talking with people and they start talking about evolution that there's 6 different types. So don't just make them define what they're talking about. Well, what do you mean by it? Ask good questions, because when you're talking with people, they will say something and they change that definition while talking to you.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. A lot of times when you ask people, what do you mean by that? Well, they don't even know what they mean by that.
Well, science confirms evolution. Science confirms microevolution.
Yeah.
Science does not confirm cosmic, stellar, macro, any of the others that we said.
Yeah.
Does not.
Yeah. And that's just what people, they need to understand that. They need to see that there is a difference, and hopefully, just by listening to this, our listeners have that understanding now. And
yep.
Is there anything else that you were wanting to touch on in this?
Not necessarily tonight. I think next week I can't. I'm super excited. Just plug Carl again. I can't wait for you all to just get to talk to Carl. You won't get to talk to him. We'll get to talk to him.
Maybe we'll actually get it set up to where people can comment.
Yeah, at some point we can figure that out. But it would be great to do that where we could have you comment and answer some questions. But Carl's going to be here with us. He's going to be talking. If you have questions you want us to ask him, send them to us this week.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah. If you've got questions, send them to us because, like I said, we'll have Carl on the show, and he's very intelligent. And
listen, I will tell you, I've already had people go, hey, if Carl's going to be on there, can I come join? Can I be a part of this?
We need to do a live, like an actual live show.
Like, hey, well, come on now.
That would be kind of cool.
That would be kind of cool. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, but I guess for now, though, that is wrapped up this segment. Like you said, this is not the only time you're going to hear of evolution.
Nope, we're going to hit it a couple, at least 2, maybe 3 or 4. We'll just see how it goes and see if we feel like we've exhausted it and covered it.
But especially next week, if you've ever had questions about Lucy, or if you don't know who Lucy is, we're not talking about I Love Lucy. We're talking about a monkey, actually. So
nobody knows who I Love Lucy is anymore.
Oh, that's true. Maybe I just showed my age.
Maybe that's beyond my age there, pal. But it's been good. Justin, it's been good to get together and talk with you. Tomorrow's chest day.
Yeah.
Excited for that. Get in and hit a little bench press.
I think something. Yeah, I'm getting we'll try to get that in though. But for now, we will see you guys next week. Again, be researching Carl. Be sending us in some questions. We'll be looking forward to that. But for now, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.